One of those issues of the day is narcissism. You've probably heard that word or you've recognized that in your favorite politicians or your family or maybe even your kids. And you know what? It's a pretty big deal. As a dad, I worry about the different things that my kids are displaying sometimes. And sometimes I'm just worried about nothing and they'll outgrow it, or I'm just looking into something that's not real. And other times there is some time to be concerned. Maybe you've seen that with your kids or your grandkids. With me to talk about it is Dr. Danny Huerta. He's the Vice President of Parenting and Youth for Focus on the Family. Danny, welcome back to the Pastor Scott Show.
Thanks for having me on the show. Grateful to be with you, Scott.
Danny, I think people use the word narcissist wrong.
You keep using the word. I don't think it means what you think it means.
What does the word narcissist mean? It's kind of the psychological word of the day, I think. I hear it all the time. So-and-so's a narcissist, or my kid. What is that? What's a narcissist?
I mean, it has increased a lot just as far as narcissistic traits. So we'll say that. They actually, a research study showed that it rose as fast as obesity, just narcissistic traits. Now, when we think about a personality disorder, that is different. The percentage is much lower. And that's where you see an entitlement, but with the desire to exploit others for your own gain. There's aggression with it. There's dominance, visible arrogance. There's a lack of empathy towards other people, a grandiosity, a sense of, man, I'm better than everyone else. And people just need to be admiring me. And there's an image keeping that goes with that. But there are two different types of narcissists, and that's important to know. One of them is grandiose. I mean, those are obvious ones. They want the world to revolve around them, and they can be dangerous people. The vulnerable, covert ones, that's an interesting one. They're hypersensitive to criticism. If you try to provide constructive criticism and say, hey, I'd love to is there openness to give you some feedback, man, they will lash out. They'll be passive aggressive. They have a need for approval, but they have an intense defensiveness where they can't take any type of criticism because it hits them right to the core. So two different ones that develop over time. And since it's a personality disorder, it's something that's built within the environment of the person generally.
So sometimes when we're talking about narcissism, it's much bigger than entitlement, right? So it's
Yes.
more than that. It's about personality. Sometimes it's traits, you said, and other times it's actually something that's a disorder.
Yeah, I mean, there's entitlement within narcissism, but it goes beyond that. Where there's exploitation, there's an entitled self-importance. One of them's entitled that I deserve certain things, and there's a certain selfishness that goes along with kids, and especially into the teen years, kind of some self-protection, and that needs to be challenged and shaped as well. But this is one where there's an over evaluation of themselves. Like they can't have weaknesses. They feel they have more value than other people around them. So there's that entitled self-importance is the key word there, as we're thinking about the difference between entitlement and narcissism. It's a perception that I'm better than everyone else, and people should need to know that.
So it's an actual perception the kid has. So when I'm thinking about my kids at different ages, you know, uh, when should I be concerned? It seems like it's a kid thing to, at some point, think, have some kind of entitlement. Uh, it's Christmas time. It's a day for them, right? It's my birthday. There's certain things, and then eventually they begin to learn. No, it's somebody else's turn and things like that. When should I start to get concerned that there's something that's not really normal child development, but something that my child is really struggling with?
And you want to look at different temperaments because they're different kids with different ways that this can show up itself. And so if you have a leader child that's more of a strong-willed child, they will come in pretty strong on their demands on how they want things to go. And what you want to be concerned about is when your child starts to say, rules don't apply to me. They're above the rules. That's a leader child. A talker child, one that's much more social, they relationship first. They have an insatiable desire for attention, and they need to bring all the conversation back to themselves. Any kind of story goes there. Oh, I have a story too, and they bring it right back to themselves, and that can start from an early age that they can't see anyone else get that attention. And then as you think about the thinker types, these are research type people. They're intellectual, they're perfectionistic. If your child, if you give them some constructive criticism, you're saying, hey, maybe when you're batting, you could do it a little bit different. You're trying to give instruction, and they just explode. They lose it. They can't take any instruction. They're hypersensitive to any type of criticism. They feel like they know better than everyone else. That's something to be concerned about. Those can show up at different developmental stages. And then the peacemakers, these are the ones that want to make everyone happy in the world. They just want everyone to be at peace, but they have a passive entitlement. They expect that in relationship, people should kind of plan their time around them. If they're peacemakers as young children, they kind of have this entitlement that people just need to take care of them. So they're the more hypersensitive ones that are feel mom and dad need to clear things for them so that they don't have any adversity, anything that's uncomfortable. And sometimes parents fall into that where they're going, oh yeah, I want to make I want to make Johnny feel okay. I want him to be happy. And so they clear any kind of adversity or difficulty. And you begin to see a peacemaker kind of demanding that and saying, hey, mom, dad, the teacher kind of called on me, and I don't like that. I don't like being called on. So then the parents go in and they're upset at the teacher for that.
Mm.
But it was something that would have been good for that peacemaker child. So each one in their temperament can show up differently developmentally as they're growing up.
So at the end of the day, I hear a word like peacemaker, and I think, well, that's good, right? You want to do that, but it's really more about self than it's about making peace. Is
Yes,
that,
yes.
so you're not really the guy who's, the child who's able to diffuse a situation. You're the one who wants all the attention on yourself, even
Yeah.
if you're doing a good thing, I suppose.
Yeah, you want the world to make you feel good. The
Yeah.
peacemakers want things to feel good, and so sometimes they're peacekeepers rather than peacemakers. And in this case, they're a peacekeeper for themselves because they want to feel good. It's not about anyone else.
Yeah. You're listening to the Pastor Scott Show. My guest is Dr. Danny Huerta. He's with Focus on the Family, and we're talking about our kids and what are the warning signs of whether or not we're raising narcissists. And, I think I thought to myself once in a while when my kids have done something crazy, like, am I raising a sociopath? What happened here, right? But, we kind of wonder. But I was watching this guy on social media as a teacher, and he's reading all these letters he gets from parents. And one of them was the parent was complaining that they did class outside and it was windy, and her child doesn't like the windiness, and that she looked online and the wind was going to be 7 miles an hour tomorrow, which is a slight breeze, and
Mm.
wanted the teacher to bring the class inside for the sake of her child. Is that the kind of thing that parents do to sort of create this behavior or,
Yeah.
this personality type?
It begins to create that process. It's not that a parent does that and all of a sudden, man, I have a narcissist on my
Right.
hands.
It's probably
But
been
it's a
going on forever.
pattern. Yeah, right. It's a pattern of trying. First of all, over evaluating a child, praising them for everything. They're playing a sport and they're not that good. And you go, man, you are amazing, and you're just overemphasizing their skill. You're going, oh my goodness, you're so good, and they're just praising that when they're not. And so then they get this overinflated sense of who they are, and then and they expect to be good at everything and better than
Mm,
everyone else because that's the feedback they've gotten. And in this case, with adversity, any kind of difficult thing, a parent that comes in and says, "Oh man, let me clear that for you," and they use the power from the parent to clear the way. They feel a sense of power and entitlement. This, I deserve this, and so if you disagree with me, I'm going to clear you out of my way. And they use the parents to do that for throughout their lifetime, and you see that play out in the school in certain ways with teachers. And as a school social worker, I saw that happen sometimes with parents complaining about a lower grade with a child, and very upset with the teacher that their child got a lower grade. And I remember talking to some of those parents and saying, hey, it actually could be the best gift for your child because it means that they haven't learned everything
mhm.
and they need to work a little harder to learn it all.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, what a gift to get a lower grade, to know what they don't know. And man, the parents just come in with this upsetness that, man, they deserve that. What in the world? What? And so they blame everyone else and it's not the child's issue, it's everyone else's. And the child watches that and begins to come up with that belief system. And so whenever they go into a relationship, the blame goes on everyone else. The attention needs to be me for me, and the world needs to revolve around me. And these are beliefs that built over time developmentally.
And so when it comes from the parent, as you're saying that, I'm thinking of all of these teachers who've called the show are teachers that I know who will always say, "You got to, this is what I'm getting from parents." And I always think to myself, my parents would have never done that. I would have had to, be some kind of Columbo to convince my parents that the teacher was wrong somehow, growing up. And they would have defended me if that were the case. But they were always on the teacher's side at first when it came to things. This has changed for a lot of
It's
people. Why is that?
I think there's distrust. I mean, there is distrust in our society in general, and trust is a relational
Mm,
foundation that we lost. We see it in the Garden of Eden when trust was removed in there between Adam and Eve and God. When Satan called it into question, things went into shame and destruction. And shame is a key word here. We are afraid of shame, and so for some parents, if their child is not doing well, their assumption is my child is fantastic, is great, and it starts to trigger some of their own insecurities, their own shame to the surface. And we are now a society of full comparison, comparing to one another and needing to look better than the
mm.
other in order to feel better about ourselves. So we have a deficit of feeling a sense of worth and a sense of competence within society. And so when it comes to the school system, there is a lack of trust towards the instructors, towards the whole system itself. And so it causes a parent to question everything. And what I encourage parents to do is get to know your teachers, encourage them, and encourage them to challenge your children, because the more your child is challenged, the more they build resilience. And resilience is helpful for so many things in life, rather than softening the way and creating these narcissistic type of traits.
Yeah.
Not necessarily disorder, but definitely traits within that playground.
So what can parents do? So one is evaluate yourself because maybe you're the narcissist, right? In some regard, you're viewing your life in reflection of whatever your kid does, and you
Mhm.
won't admit when they're messing up somehow. What can a parent do to be better at maybe preventing entitlement in their kids or helping them through that if they've already noticed that trait?
Something I've taught over the years in my counseling practice, and it was my own kids, was the difference between a contributor and a consumer. And a consumer many times will pretend certain things. They'll be nice, they'll be kind, they'll do things in order to get something for themselves. And so for your kids, help them begin to learn the importance of knowing your intention. What are you actually wanting? What are you doing? A contributor will be kind, will be loving, and will be caring for the benefit and the love of other people around them. And so from an early age, I told my kids, hey, let's be noticers of what God's doing. So that's with gratitude, noticers of people around us and who they are and their unique creation. They're uniquely made by God, that they're fearfully and wonderfully made. Noticing God's creation in general, from bugs to other things, and knowing that we are stewards within that, and that we're servants within God's kingdom. And we can start teaching that to our kids from an early age, have them do chores and serve within the home from an early age. And then have them be encouragers, builders of others. I called my kids, I'd say, hey, you guys are going to be builders today. And that means builders in God's kingdom with your words, encouraging others, being life giving to others. And that's modeled by you and also taught by you and encouraged by you. And then the final one is, what does it look like to be a servant? And that means serving other people. And as a family, look for opportunities to serve within your home. So as a dad, when you come home and you're already tired, you go, hey, I got the dishes tonight. You're modeling serving your family and doing it with joy, serving a neighbor, serving within the church when you can. And and having that be part of your culture, that when you can, you serve outside your home, but within your home, the culture of service is a norm. And it begins with a couple learning to serve one another and modeling that, husband and wife serving each other wanting the best for the other. And I would say, if you can think of as a parent, what is one thing I can do to make the day better for my family as I serve and I model that? That's great. Then have your kids have that challenge. Hey, think of one thing you could do to make the day better for at least one person today. Have that challenge for them. So that's just an initial way of embracing a contributor mindset
Hmm.
rather than a consumer mindset.
I think that's a good word right there. This is the Pastor Scott Show. My guest is Dr. Danny Huerta from Focus on the Family. You can go to focusonthefamily.com to learn more there. One other thing that's on my mind when it comes to this is you earlier mentioned that we are a culture that is built on comparison now, and kids are on social media. They're not supposed to be on there. We know it's bad from all the studies, but kids are on social media from a very young age, very often. Like I think the age is 13 that you're allowed, but you can put it any date you want. So there are
Yes.
very young kids on there, and social media drives adults crazy as they compare themselves to other people. What's that doing to our kids?
Research is showing that it definitely grows narcissistic traits in kids. They become obsessed with the likes and the follows that they're hungry for, because that may bring revenue, but it also will bring a sense of importance to them, a sense of I'm better than, and the world is truly revolving around me. Social media itself encourages surrounding yourself with attention, right? Focusing it on yourself, and our culture is really responding in big ways to this social
Hmm.
media craze. And the hard part is it's tied with money, financial gain there as well, and so people can exploit one another
Hmm.
within that kind of setting as well.
Yeah, I've heard my own kids say it, and I've heard other kids talk about what do you want to do when you grow up? Well, I want to be a YouTuber.
Yeah,
Oh, you're
yeah,
going to make a living out of that. There's five people doing that, real successfully, right? There's more than five, unfortunately, but
yeah,
that's a weird thing, for me to sort of comprehend. But so much of that is self, right? That
yeah.
that is driving. So keep kids off of social media. Just another reason to do that for sure.
Oh, I would agree. I mean, screens are built specifically with this loop in mind that our brain is attracted to to the many things that screens can offer. One of them being escaping things if you're stressed out, to gaining as much attention as you can, and having people get to know you and having it centered around you. Everything about screens is pointed towards an addictive response, and we just need to be aware that as parents, we don't have to become the cool parents. We can become the parents that are truly that we're warm and sensitive. We validate our kids and the fact that other kids have screens, but we also have boundaries and limits that make sense to our children's future, into their relationships, and to their development. And research has shown plenty of cons to having screens at an early age. And so, as long as you can push social media itself out into the future, the better it is. I know for our kids, we had plenty of conversations, and we said, yeah, at 18, 19, if you think it makes sense for you to do that when you're in college, that's up to you. But while you're here, let's explore the many other things that you can be involved in, and you as parents get to set the tone in that. Don't feel the pressure from other parents if they're letting their kids have screens at 7, 8, 9 years old. Man, you're just creating more parenting for
Hmm.
yourself and more headaches.
Yeah. Well, Danny, this is all good stuff to think about. What are some resources that Focus on the Family offers for parents who are navigating these things?
Yeah, just come to focusonthefamily.com/parenting, and you'll land right on that page. There's so much there for you to explore. There's an assessment and the age and stage resources. Be sure to specifically look for those. And yeah, we look forward to you visiting here at Focus on the Family.
And if you're worried about something, you know what? You can take action now. If you're saying, "Oh yeah, my kid's got all of that," well, don't just leave it there. Go get some help.
Yes. Yeah, we have, hey, Scott, we have a counseling line that is fantastic. It's 1-800, the letter A and the word family, 1-800-232-6459. You can talk with one of the counselors there. If you have a teen that you're having a difficult time with, where you're seeing some of these traits or other behaviors, it's a great first phone call. Again, it's free.
Hmm.
they'll refer you to a counselor in your area.
Dr. Danny Huerta, thanks for being with me again on the Pastor Scott Show today.
Thank you, Scott.